Hello, everybody. Once I finished putting this case together, I noticed that it had been covered quite a bit already. I wasn't familiar with it, and that's why I decided to cover it. I was interested in it. Hopefully, there will be a few of you out there that haven't heard of it yet. So, with that being said, let's get on with it. The Burr family lived in Tacoma, Washington, and included parents Don and Beverly, Ann Marie, who was the oldest at 8 years old, her younger siblings, Julie 6, Greg 5, and Mary 3. On August 30th, 1961, 8-year-old Ann Marie asked her mom if she could spend the night at a friend's house, but her mom told her no. Ann was to sleep in her sister Julie's room that night, since Julie and her friends were using Ann's room for a slumber party. Don put Ann's dog outside for the night, locked all the doors, and the family was all in bed by 11 p.m. Beverly woke up at 5:15 the next morning. There had been a heavy rainstorm, and the power was out in the neighborhood. She went downstairs to check on the kids, and they were still sleeping. She then went upstairs to check on Ann, and the bed was empty. She headed to the main floor and noticed that the living room window was open, as was the door that was always kept locked at night. Beverly walked around the house and saw a garden stool placed under the living room window. She walked in and woke Don, and the police were called. When they arrived, the family was interviewed, after which the neighborhood was searched. Soon there were hundreds of police searching fields, waterways, garbage cans, and sewers. At the time, it was Tacoma's largest search in its history, but Ann was never found. Later that morning, detectives spoke with Beverly about the events of the morning. She told the officers about waking up and finding Ann missing, and that she and Don heard Barney, the dog, bark during the night. They thought he was just distressed from the storm. Beverly also told the officers one more thing, that as soon as she saw the window wide open in the living room, she knew she would never see Ann again. And sadly, neither she nor anyone else would ever see the blonde-haired, hazel-eyed girl again. After months of searching and interviewing hundreds of people, and with little to no evidence, the police have never been able to solve the case. In 1974, there was a flurry of missing and murdered women in Washington and surrounding areas. The crimes continued until in 1975, when someone was arrested for an attempted kidnapping in Salt Lake City, Utah. His name was Ted Bundy. Bundy lived 5 miles from the Burr family and was 14 years old at the same time Ann disappeared. He had a paper route in the area and often visited an uncle that lived close to the Burrs. After he was arrested and awaiting execution, he was granting interviews to psychiatrists, detectives, and journalists. One particular psychiatrist, Dr. Robert Holmes, was granted an interview with Ted in 1986. Ted revealed to him a story about how he had stalked, strangled, and sexually molested his first victim 26 years earlier. It was an 8-year-old girl that vanished from her home. He indicated that he dumped the body in a pit near the University of Puget Sound. The interview wasn't recorded, and there were doubts that Bundy really did confess to this. In a subsequent interview with Robert Keppel, Ted denied killing Ann. Keppel had gotten to know Bundy quite well by this time and doubted this denial. In the last interview Bundy granted before his execution, he refused to discuss his last victim, Kimberly Leach. It was speculated that it was due to shame because of her young age. Maybe the same was true for Ann. Once Don and Beverly heard about Bundy as a possible suspect, Beverly wrote the following to him behind bars. Dear Ted, on August 31st, 1961, just before school was to start for you and our children, There came a black, rainy night with lots of heavy winds. You were 14 and had been wandering the streets late at night and peeping in windows and taking cars. I feel your first murder was our Ann Marie Burr. The bench from the backyard was used to climb in the living room. The orchard next door was a dark setting for a murder. What did you do with the tiny body? God can forgive you. With all appeals likely to be refused and soon, there is nothing left for you in this world. There can still be everything good for you in the next. Your life started going wrong somewhere when you were very young. There had to be a lot of bad things happen to make you have your strong feelings of hatred. I came close to ruining my life because of my cruel actions and feeling no sorrow about them. A lot of strange circumstances brought help to me, or I would not have found myself, even though I knew I needed help and my actions were getting out of control. You should have received that same help when you needed it. God can still give the help to you if you can gather together any strength you have left and try to feel real sorrow inside for the horrors you have brought to so many. You will face these horrors alone if there's no chance to be with God after you die. You have nothing more to lose in this world. By explaining your sickness, you will feel sorrow and gain everything in the next life, as God promised you and all of us. Please try. There isn't much time. I am deeply sorry you did not get the help when you needed it. I have not written until now because the end of life for you did not seem near until now. Will you write back to me regarding Ann Marie? Within a few days, Beverly got a response. Dear Beverly, thank you for your letter of May 30th. I can certainly understand you doing everything you can to find your daughter. Unfortunately, you have been misled by what can only be called rumors about me. The best thing I can do for you is to correct these falsehoods. First and foremost, I do not know what happened to your daughter, Ann Marie. I had nothing to do with her disappearance. You said she disappeared August 31st, 1961. At that time, I was just a normal 14-year-old boy. I did not wander the streets late at night. I did not steal cars. I had absolutely no desire to harm anyone. I was just an average kid. For your sake, you really must understand this. Again and finally, I did not abduct your daughter. I had nothing to do with her disappearance. If there is still something you wish to ask me about, please don't hesitate to write again. God bless and be with you. Peace, Ted. Ted's mother, Louise, granted a rare interview, and when asked about the possibility that Ted kidnapped and murdered Ann, she said, I resent the fact that everybody in Tacoma thinks that just because he lived in Tacoma, he did that one too. He was 14. I'm sure he didn't do it. Bundy was executed in January of 1989, and in subsequent years, detectives have attempted to solve cold cases that they suspect Bundy to be involved in. In 2011, they were surprised to find a vial of blood that had been taken from Bundy back in 1978. Sadly, in Ann's case, it was reported that there wasn't enough DNA evidence to produce a complete profile. Beverly and Dawn made sure that Ann's disappearance received news coverage throughout the years. In the 90s, Beverly received a phone call from a psychiatrist in Tacoma. He was treating a patient who believed she was Ann. Beverly baked an apple pie and invited the woman over, but as soon as she saw her, she knew it wasn't her. The woman insisted that she was, so the family decided to get a DNA test done. Beverly was right. This woman wasn't Ann Marie. In 1999, 38 years after Ann went missing, the family held a memorial service for her. By that time, Beverly was glad that she didn't know what happened to Ann. She always felt that whoever killed her was someone she knew. But she was glad she didn't know the details of her death because, he tortured women, she said, speaking of Bundy. Relatives would reveal to investigators after Ann's death that she and Bundy knew each other and that she wouldn't have been afraid of him. There are many that still believe that Ann was Bundy's first victim. There are also many who think it is unlikely, as he would have had to ridden his bike to her house, find her window, get her out of the house, and dispose of her body, all without being caught. At 14 years old, this seems like an impossible feat. Beverly would later say of Ann, "She was so trusting. It was a big mistake. We taught her that everyone was good. We didn't teach her that people could be bad." Ann's father died in 2003 and her mom Beverly in 2008. All 4 of her siblings are still alive. Thank you for watching, and until next time, everybody, take care.